We gotta talk about this Andor finale because holy crap, this was a fantastic show and they capped it off, I feel, near perfectly. I feel like a lot of the content that we've gotten on Disney Plus kind of has this issue where the final episode is meant to be a big action set piece and it doesn't fit the tone or the story or quite the characters of everything that has preceded it. And it doesn't matter whether that's on the Marvel side or on the Star Wars side. I feel like this Andor finale was the perfect cap to what happened in the show. I do have a couple nitpicks, but I will get into that right now. We start with the intro music, which has a lot of brass sounds and they're not quite in tune. And this plays out so beautifully later when we actually get to the procession. And then it dawns on you. The catalyst for all of this has been the funeral procession music from the beginning. This is the same tune that is played throughout every episode. They just play it differently with different instruments and it signifies different things, but we've been building to this the entire time, and I think that was beautiful on Tony Gilroy's part. The iconic imagery of the Lambda-class shuttle slowly landing and Dedra walking out in force. Every time this ship lands, some type of badass walks out of it, and they are tough and they are powerful. This time we got Dedra walking out with 2 death troopers at her sides, and it's so interesting how that power plays out for her. And all these scenes are being intercut with Wilman Pack building a bomb and looking at the image of his father, who was just tossed out after being tortured and then killed for pretty much no reason. Yes, he did set up the transmitter, but he didn't use it, and he told them everything he knew. Zelwyn telling Brasso about his conversation with Cassian and Nurchi overhearing it only to try to get someone drunk later to get more information. All throughout, this show has done an amazing job of building tension, and they kept setting the stage for what was going to pop off later in the show, and these are just some examples. The growing distance between Senta and Vel, because Senta is so obsessed with fighting the Empire because of hatred, so obsessed with this ISB officer, visiting the brick of his adopted father and having a touching flashback. Then we get Luthen finally arriving on the planet. Cassian finally finds out that Bix is being held prisoner, and Cyril and Linus are inbound for the funeral. And with all those strings being laid out, all of these people are now on the world and converging. We get such an epic conclusion to the first season of this show. Once again, the tension building is incredible, jumping to these people, sending them in a trajectory that will make everyone clash. It was beautifully done. And in the midst of all this, we cut back to Mon Mothma, who's also having an epic conclusion of finally having to get her hands dirty, finally having to dip into the rebellion in a way that is not great for her family. She straight up frames her husband for all of the missing funds. He doesn't even know what she's talking about, but she knows that the Empire doesn't care. She knows that the Empire is listening, and by casting doubt, by saying that he's gambling, she just threw him under the bus. Now, this man belongs under a bus. Perrin is trash. This is a Perrin hate account. I can't wait to see that guy get arrested for doing this, even though in this case, I'm sure he's actually innocent. Now, at the end of this, she does sacrifice her daughter too, but not in a direct way. At least her daughter is getting a life that her daughter is wanting, even though she wants it based off of rebellion from her mom. She's falling back into the customs because her mom doesn't like them. Like, this is direct teenage rebellion against her mom, and her mom knows that she's probably going to grow to regret this. Mon Mothma didn't want her to live the same life that she was, didn't want her to have to go through the same strife and turmoil that this arranged marriage has put on her life. But because of the situation, she's allowing it to happen because it's going to benefit her and benefit the rebellion. One of the small details that I absolutely love, though, is in the flashback, he's cleaning a CPU heatsink. Like, this is just a regular standard computer part, and it's so funny to see it here in Star Wars. It doesn't take me out of it, and obviously they're using computers that probably need heat sinks, but it's just funny to see real stuff in Star Wars. I'm not going to complain about it and nitpick because that's dumb, but it just makes me laugh. But this whole first section is capped off beautifully by two things juxtaposing each other. The Empire dictating what it's going to allow this local custom when it comes to their funeral. They're only going to allow, 40 people. They're changing the time. They're limiting the radius of what they can do, or they're going to try to. They think they're going to. But on the other side of this, we have the words of Nemec's manifesto, and it's beautiful. I'm going to need to do a full breakdown on that separately. But having these two scenes together is so beautiful because of the power of Nemec's words. He says, and remember this, the Imperial need for control is so desperate because it's so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. See, this is why the Empire is trying to dictate what they can and can't do with their own local customs. They need to control everything because if they don't, that control is so brittle, it's so weak that it could change at a moment's notice, and that's exactly what we see happening in this episode. Also, can we take a minute to talk about my man Brasso? He's such a positive and refreshing depiction of masculinity in Star Wars. He is a badass. He's tough as nails. He can handle his business, yet he cares for everyone around him. He gives Cassian the gift of the words of his dying mother, and he memorized all of that. Bro, I can't even remember my wife's Starbucks order. I'm just text it to me. He's out here giving her whole dissertation and speeches. Man, he's just an awesome character, and he whoops a lot of ass in this episode. Now, Marva had some really touching words for Cassian, but that last line, I love him more than anything he could do wrong. Whew. That one hurt. That one hurt. And then, of course, we see what happens when people get pushed too far. We see what happens when the Empire's grasp is too tight. The people rebel. From the time the Time Grappler hits the bell to start this whole procession, we get 10 minutes of it. And I know it feels like it's long, but it builds so much freaking tension. They started hours earlier than they were supposed to. They had way more people there than they were supposed to have. They marched a lot further than the town square where the Empire said that they could. As they're marching, and as you hear this music, we get this beautiful shot of Bix, who's been tortured. She's been going through it, and she's hearing the music. And it's the first piece of comfort that she's had in such a long time that she's basking in it. That hit my heart too, especially considering they used sound to hurt her. And she's getting this new sound that is soothing her. It's so beautiful. All this also harkens back to episode 3 when everyone was banging on metal in order to signify that the Empire was there. And what did Marvis say? It's when everything goes quiet that you should be worried. What comes then? It's a reckoning. When the funeral procession finally goes quiet, we get B2 Emo displaying the final words of Marva. And man, is her speech powerful, and it causes a reckoning. Later, I'm going to do a full breakdown of her speech, but she says some awesome things like there's a darkness reaching like rust, and we let it grow. And it's here, and it's not visiting anymore. That the Empire is a disease that thrives in darkness. And at the end, she says, maybe fighting it is useless. Perhaps it's too late. But if I could do it again, I'd wake up early, and I would fight. This is so important because the focus is on the fight. We don't know if we're gonna win. This also goes back to Nemec's manifesto, where he says, try. We don't know if we're gonna succeed, but you have to try. And one of these things, one of these times, is going to be the one single thing that will break the siege. This also harkens all the way back to Rogue One at the end. After everything is said and done, Cassian and Jyn look at each other, and the question is, do you think anyone heard us? Do you think anyone received the message? They sent out the message not knowing if there was anyone on the other end to receive it. But the most important thing was to fight. The most important thing was to try. And then that leads to the unthinkable. How dare this man put his hands on B2 Emo. I love that droid. I would die for that droid. Who does he think he is? That's when Brasso jumps into action, and again, he's a badass. I think we can all agree that Marva would be proud of what Cassian becomes, but she would be especially proud watching Brasso hit someone in the face with her brick. When Willman finally throws his bomb and it sets off the bombs that the Empire brought in, the crap hits the fan. And the crazy thing is that this whole thing, this whole situation, this whole riot is not ever portrayed as heroic on anyone's part. It's dirty, it's ugly, it's grimy, people die. We see a man die and the camera just focuses on his face and it just sits there until you get uncomfortable because that's just the harsh reality of what's going on. And in the meantime, while everyone's waiting for Cassian to show, he's the one place where they don't expect him to be. He's in the hotel saving Bix, who didn't want to leave because she said they'd get mad. That is the power of the fear that they're able to put on people. On a side note, this episode has 3 super satisfying things. First one, I already mentioned, Brasso hitting a guy in the face with Marva's brick. Number 2 is a rock hitting Deidre in the head and her falling down. Love the character. Hate the character because I love her. And number 3 is a stormtrooper getting kicked off of the tower with a time grappler. Out of these 3 things, let me know in the comments which ones you found to be the most satisfying. But overall, it is incredible. Especially once Zero saves Dedra and she's like, how? And she's terrified in this moment because all the power that she has, all the authority that she has, showing up with these death troopers amounted to nothing in this situation. And now she's trapped in this room with this creepy guy who has a gun, who's in love with her, who saved her. I don't even know where their story is going to go, but it's a deeply uncomfortable relationship. We also see Cinta's obsession pan out, where she didn't even join in the riot or anything like that. She just hunted down that single ISB agent and ended him with extreme prejudice. And after this, I think it's safe to say that during the Aldani arc, she killed that family for sure. She's a beast. Fortunately, eventually everyone makes it out to safety and we get the final confrontation between Andor and Luthen. And they are just as uneasy with each other as they were the first time that they met. And Andor knows that Luthen came here to kill him. I love how this is the classic return with the elixir. Cassian is back here. He's back on Ferrix. He's back with Luthen. It's the same situation, but he is what is different. And the circumstances are now different. And for the first time, Cassian is willing to die for the cause. This is such a beautiful way to wrap up the show. I'm so happy with Andor. This was my least anticipated project when it came out, and now I need more. I need more. If Andor is not your speed, that's cool. If it was too slow for you or whatever, that is fine. Not liking it or anything like that. None of that's toxic. It only gets toxic when you start to insist that things like this shouldn't exist because you personally didn't love it. And same way goes for the other side too. I love this, but I don't think everything needs to be this. Even the post-credit scene gave me chills, seeing how Andor spent so much time building components in order to put on the weapon of the Death Star that is going to be his ultimate demise. This is why no one was making it out of that prison. This is why all of their prison sentences randomly got expanded. They needed the work. They were never going to let anyone out because they could share what they were doing and someone might be able to put it together. It's crazy, but the Empire is dirty. It pretends not to be, but it is rough. Absolutely loved Andor. Can't wait for season 2. Let me know in the comments what you guys want to see, and thank you for watching.